I come to the Senate floor today, Mr. President, to urge my colleagues again to focus on an important issue in the overall Obamacare debate, and that is how Washington fares under Obamacare, and does Washington live by the same rules, the same laws it passes on the rest of America. You know, Mr. President, all across the country, as we see daily in news reports, Americans are struggling with real issues and real challenges created by Obamacare. And we need to fix those issues and those challenges. We need to get it right. But at the same time as that's going on in the real world, Washington, leaders here basically get an exemption, a carve-out, special treatment, a subsidy. And that is particularly egregious and particularly unfair when ordinary Americans suffer under these very real challenges. That's why I've introduced my No Washington Exemption from Obamacare bill. And that's why I continue to work hard with many other members. We have significant co-authors here and in the House to get that passed. Now, Mr. President, with regard to Congress, the Obamacare statute actually got it right. And with regard to Congress, all we're asking for is that we live by the statute and live by the law. That statutory language says clearly that every member of Congress and all of our congressional official staff go to the exchanges for our health care and be treated just like other Americans going to the exchanges, many of them being forced off plans, employer plans they liked, and having to go to the exchanges. No special treatment, no special exemption or carve-out or subsidy. The problem is that after the law passed, I guess it was a classic case of what Nancy Pelosi said. We need to pass the law in order to figure out what's in it. Because after Obamacare passed, with that specific statutory language, a lot of folks on Capitol Hill read it, figured out what was in it, and said, oh, you know what, we can't have this. We can't live with this. And then they furiously started lobbying for a way out, for an end run around. And sure enough, they got it. The Obama administration issued a special rule for Congress to take all of that financial sting out of the provision. The rule basically said two things, both of which I think are outrageous and contrary to the statute itself. First of all, it said, you know, I know the law says all official staff go to the exchanges, but we don't know who that is. We don't know who official staff are, so we're going to leave it up to each individual member of Congress to designate who is official staff who must go to the exchanges for their health care. Well, Mr. President, I just think that is flat out ridiculous. The law, the statute clearly says all official congressional staff, and to create this opportunity for exemption where each individual member designates staff as official or not is silly. That designation, by the way, happened last week, and some members have actually said, none of my staff is official. I have no official staff for purposes of this section, so none of my staff go to the exchanges. That's outrageous. Other members said, well, my personal office staff is official, but committee staff, no, leadership staff, no. That is outrageous too. The second thing this illegal rule did to get around the impact of this provision of Obamacare is to say, well, for members and staff who do go to the exchanges, they get to take with them a huge taxpayer-funded subsidy, a big subsidy that no other American at that income level gets. And that's not in the Obamacare statute either. And that's contrary to the Obamacare statute. In fact, that specific language was considered for inclusion and was not put in. Proof that that was not the intent of that section of Obamacare. I believe that's outrageous as well, Mr. President, and defeats the whole purpose of the section, which is to make sure members of Congress and our staff walk in the same shoes as other Americans, 8 million plus of whom are being forced off coverage they liked and being forced onto that Obamacare exchange. And so, Mr. President, that's why I have joined with others to push this no Washington exemption from Obamacare language. Now, as I mentioned, one key element of this is this election that this illegal rule creates, where every individual member of Congress determines who on their staff goes to the exchange or doesn't. And as I said, in some cases, members say, I have no official staff. Nobody has to live by the law. Nobody has to live by this mandate, which is particularly outrageous. Now, to add insult to injury, these individual decisions by every member of Congress are not public. This is all secretive. This is hidden from the public. Some members have said what they're doing through the press, but the full information, each individual member's election with regard to this, is not public. And so, as soon as that loophole was created, I filed another bill, another piece of legislation that simply says we're going to make all of these decisions public. Everybody has a right to know how each member of the Senate, how each member of the House is handling the situation. And that's my Show Your Exemptions bill, which I filed about 10 days ago. I think it should be a no-brainer. I think it should be beyond debate. Whatever you think about the underlying issue, whatever you think about Obamacare, shouldn't this decision of each individual member be made public? Shouldn't the public have a right to know? And so that's why I filed this bill. That's why I'm pushing for a vote on this bill. And getting a vote on that proposal will be a key priority of mine, particularly when we consider the drug compounding bill in the near future and when we consider the Department of Defense authorization bill. It's going to be my key priority to get a simple vote on that simple proposal. Again, I believe that should be a no-brainer, that this information, which does involve how taxpayer dollars are being treated, which does involve how congressional offices are handling the situation, that information, one way or the other, be made public. Don't need to editorialize about it. Everybody can make up their own mind about what they think about the underlying issue, about what they think about Obamacare, but shouldn't that information be made public? We need to vote on that proposal, and I urge us to move and agree quickly to a vote, either in the context of the drug compounding bill or the defense authorization bill over the next few weeks. Those are probably going to be the only opportunities for a vote this calendar year. And I think it's certainly fair and reasonable to get that vote, have the American people be able to see that information. And really, that's the only opportunity I'm likely to have in the Senate this calendar year. Again, whatever my colleagues think about the underlying issue, certainly whatever we all think about Obamacare, I would hope we can all agree on this. That election, that information, how each individual member of the Senate, each individual member of the House handles the situation should be made public. It certainly involves public policy and taxpayer dollars and how we run Congress. It should be made public. And I urge my colleagues, Republicans and Democrats, to unite around that reasonable common sense proposal and get that information out to the public as it should. Thank you, Mr. President. With that, I yield the floor and suggest the absence of a quorum.